Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Cabinet. Good to see you all today, and welcome to anybody who may be watching at home. I'm Peter Fox, leader of the Council. I'll just ask Cabinet colleagues to introduce themselves. To my right.
Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Good afternoon, Liz Hackett-Payne, Cabinet Member for Education and Learning.
Hello, Brian Jones, Cabinet Member for County Operations.
Good afternoon, Giles Howard, Cabinet Member for Environment, Public Services and Housing.
Bob Greenland, Deputy Leader, responsibility for innovation, enterprise and leisure.
Yeah, Phil Hobson, Deputy Leader and in charge of Community Development.
Good afternoon, Jeff Burrows, Cabinet Member for Social Services, Housing, that's a long time ago, Social Services, Safeguarding and Health. Apologies.
Okay, can I ask opposition leaders if they would like to introduce themselves?
Dimitri Petruni, Leader of the Labour Group.
Thank you very much. We're obviously joined by some other members and officers. And officers, if you would introduce yourselves when you're asked to speak, if that happens, that'd be we would welcome that. Thank you. Okay, not a heavy agenda today. We've had one item is no longer on the agenda. It's been dealt with under a single member decision. That's item 2. But anyway, let's just move through the formalities of little 1, and that's the apologies for absence. We're full house today. So item 2, declarations of interest. Any forward at this moment? No, and if you find one as we talk, obviously, please let us know and fill in the appropriate pro forma. There are consideration of reports from select committees. There's none received, and there aren't any specific items being highlighted from those previous meetings. Obviously, we've had quieter time through August, and I think we reported back on select committee business and their recommendations previous to August. So we'll go on then to item 4, and that's to consider the 2 reports here, Universal Credit Delivery Partnership and then the proposed funding to Caldecott Town Team. So can I invite Councillor Howard to introduce the first report, please?
Yes, thanks, Leader. As part of our ongoing work, joint work with Torvine, the report seeks permission to create a Universal Credit Delivery Partnership with the DWP. The report is on the back of the national rollout of Universal Credit, whereby a household will receive a single payment to manage rather than to specified individuals. Much of the focus is on managing benefits and claims online, including housing costs. In particular, the partnership seeks to establish support for those for whom the changes will be difficult to adapt to. Danny Boy's busy. In particular, the partnership seeks to establish support for those for whom the changes will be difficult to adapt to, although as paragraphs 3.4 and 3.5 note, the expected demand is low. Nonetheless, there will be clients who will be needing the support we offer. The full partnership agreement detailing the changes is appended to the end of the report and covers all aspects of its management and operation, including the roles and responsibilities of the Department for Work and Pensions and each authority. Appendix 3 notes the comments that arose from the consultation, but with any new process, particularly for many claimants, this may take some time to settle in. I would, of course, like to thank Ian Bakewell, the report author, who will be able to respond to any further questions of detail, and on this basis, I'd like to move the report, Leader.
Thank you, Giles. Ian, is there anything you would like to add? No? Richard, Richard, did you want to add anything? Richard can... Okay, well, obviously, this is something we'll want to do. We recognise, we're in a transition period, and it's going to be challenging for those few individuals who will struggle perhaps with the methods of accessing universal credit and dealing with it, and certainly online. And it's got to be welcomed, something which can help us and help those individuals through that process. And I note that there is grant funding from DWP to help us do that to the tune of about 22,000 I see. I was surprised actually to see the low number of people who might require support who we've identified, and I thought it might have been far greater than that. However, any individual needs support, needs appropriate support on when they need it. We don't want people to be dropping through the loop because they're frightened to ask, and I hope we are finding ways to identify all of those people who may need that level of support. So, colleagues, I'll open it up for wider discussion. Nothing? No? No. Councillor Petruni?
Yes, thank you, Leader. 2 questions, if I may. First question is about rurality and the difficulty of getting people who live in rural areas to access the system, given we know broadband issues in the county. I noticed on on the electronic version 15, part 2, on page 10 of the appended report, it says, inform the council will inform the department of any potential barriers to the delivery of local service provision. I wonder if we've raised that issue with them, given the reality of Monmouthshire and getting access to those people. I don't see mentioned anywhere rurality in the report. And on page 36, it must be a legitimate reason for this, I'm not sure why, on the sustainability tick boxes. We don't seem to have put increased employment for local people. We said that would be neutral. But presumably Universal Credit's whole remit, or as it's sold, is to increase employment, or at least get people back onto the job market with the online CV and so forth. And I wonder why that's neutral for us.
Thank you, Dimitri. Richard or Ian, would you like to respond?
Councillor Petruni's point about the employment is that's completely appropriate. It would be a positive situation, because that's the whole principle of universal credit. It's about supporting people back into work. With regards to the rurality issue and issues of broadband, again, I think Councillor Petruni probably does make a relevant point. We're probably not in a position to say there's 100% coverage across the authority, but the framework that we've got obviously will support anyone in terms of those issues, in terms of the partnerships that we've got in place to assist people that do come up against those barriers.
I suppose we've identified this is identified people from all over this chart here, all over the county. I would expect. How do we? I mean, clearly people come forward when their situation changes and they need support and things. Are we confident then that we can identify those people in those rural communities? Then, responding to Dimitri's point. How do we make sure that we don't miss somebody? Perhaps somebody who is just a bit embarrassed to ask, or doesn't know how to come forward, hasn't got access to the bus service, or hasn't got a car. How do we identify those people?
Well, just to deal with that point, access to the system is of primary importance to the benefit service that the council provides. So we provide surgeries in the one-stop shops. We have a team of home visiting officers across Torfaen and Monmouthshire who will go out and visit customers who are unable to make the trip into the one-stop shops. We provide online facilities so that people can claim online, and we follow that up with telephone calls, etc., and a supported claim process. So there's a variety of, we hope we don't miss anyone, there's a variety of methods that we use. We also have a free phone number for all benefit claimants, and they talk to people who will help them to claim benefits and to achieve the entitlements that they should receive.
Thank you. So those people who do go outreach and go out to, out into the rural communities, they can actually help those individuals via their own technology to access things. Can they help them and talk them through that process? This is basically what this is talking about, isn't it? About giving them that support to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got the technology that we use as an authority or as a shared benefit service, so that we can complete an electronic claim in a customer's home. If they don't have access, then we use paper processes as an alternative, but that's our last resort. We prefer to everything to be electronic. And in terms of this interaction with the DWP, we are a referral point for those who wish to claim universal credit. If the DWP were here, they would be talking about the focus that they have on digital inclusion, and that actually part of the funding that's available here is about supporting people who are not able to access via the digital process. But the experience at Torfaen, because this has already started there, is that over 90% of claimants are able to claim online. They're very high figures, and that's generally the experience across the country. But our duty is to help those who can't.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. Simon? Okay, so the recommendation is before us to agree to enter into agreement with the Department for Work and Pensions as a delivery partner to support the roll out of universal credit in Monmouthshire. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move straight on then to item 3, which is the proposed funding of the Caldecott Town Team. Councillor Phil Hobson.
Thank you, Leader. This is to agree the release of £2,000 of Section 106 contributions received from ASDA to support the running costs associated with the Caldecott Town Team. The Town Team submitted a business case application to the Sevenside Programme Board in June, seeking additional funding support for running costs associated with the running of the team. To comply with requirements for applications for funding support from this pot of money from ASDA, contributions can only be recommended for approval by the Programme Board and then subsequently by Cabinet. Those contributions were valued at £225,000 that have been earmarked for Town Centre Partnership Promotion and Improvement, and to date projects to the value of £41,000 have been committed under this heading, and the amount requested therefore is significantly within the remaining balance of £183,000.
Okay, thank you, Phil. And we recognise the good work that team members are doing down there, and also can I put on record thanks to the project board for the work they're doing in helping to coordinate and oversee what's happening in the area. Councillor Tony Eason is with us today, and as a local member has asked me in advance if he can address Cabinet with regard to this report. So before I open up wider, I'll invite Tony to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I don't want to sound too critical. I've got concerns about the way we in the council are driving forward in Caldecott. The £2,000 will address the issues that went before the programme board, but we don't seem to have any sense of direction in the south of the county, in as much as there's various groups, all, I won't say vying for more money, but all vying for positions. The town team set up in 2013 based on the report of the means in 2009. I see the town team predominantly now being directed more by officer support than its own support. There's a level of lack of direction from within the town team. It's down to 1 or 2 people who are doing a good job, and of course at times you need to get volunteers in. Before you agree this £2,000, which on the face of it has got all the merits that it needs, I think the Cabinet should look at how, and through Ms Councillor Hobson, look at how we take the town team in Caldecott forward, how we take the programme board forward in Caldecott, and try and take out the need for the level of officer support which we seem to need to keep the town team running. We also have a Sevenside Area Committee. I think we've got too many committees in Caldecott, all trying to do the same thing and all finished up in one little corner. The town team will be having an AGM in the end of September, and it might be worthwhile if Cabinet looked to see what direction the town team will be taking after the end of this month. They need their own support, but I think we also need to find ways of pulling the programme board, the town team and the Sevenside Area Committee together so they can make more effective use of their resources and their talents and this particular level of money, because we've put 11 to 12,000 pound forward now for a visioning project, which hopefully will give us some guidance on the future of Caldecott. But everything seems to me to be stagnating and not getting anywhere. Maybe I'm being too critical, but that's the impression I get. And I'd like Cabinet to consider where we as a council go, we as local members go, and how we can support the position of the town team after the next AGM in September. I don't think that the town team should need massive amounts of officer support, but that's what it seems to me at the moment, that it's being sustained by officer support. And really they should be self-sustaining with the support of the programme board, and maybe look at where the 70 area committee fits in. So that's a concern I've got. I've expressed these concerns to Colin and to Kelly in the past. I think the Cabinet should be briefed on my thoughts particularly.
Okay, thank you, Tony, for raising that. And I think the whole issue of how we advance the governance in the whole place agenda is something which is under discussion. We've had the piece of work. I'm not sure if we've got the results. I know Kelly. I'll invite Kelly in a second to give some feedback on that. But clearly, as you say, we've got several people aiming doing similar things. Just, the area committee, the programme board, the town team, and it is a pilot area, and it is evolving, and there will be deeper consideration around that. The project board is it's represented by elected members, by town council members and other groups. I have faith in their overseeing of the local area. We know that initial document of 7 for 7 sides sets some overarching direction, I know, but I think you're looking for more specific clarity on the direction of town team and the way that might be going, or how it perhaps the project board needs to help it go in the future. Yeah, so I'll invite Kelly and Colin actually to reflect on what you said. That'll help Cabinet members a little. Perhaps Kelly, can I invite you first?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Kelly Byrne, Chief Officer for Enterprise. I think there are many valid points there raised by Councillor Eason. I think the first important thing for me to say is that the report that you have in front of you today has been endorsed by the full programme board for Sevenside for onward approval by Cabinet. And I think with all community interest companies, with all co-creation, with what we're trying to inspire in our communities, which is devolution of power, giving them more freedom and flexibility, there does come a cost, an upfront cost. And in this instance, that is an injection of officer time. And I think that's quite right and proper, because as you will know, with a community interest company, there's lots of new things that we have to do. It's not just about governance, it's about submission of a CIC regulator report. The town team has to pass the annual community interest test. There's company accounts to file, directors' reports. Now, we don't want to put community groups off by having to do all of that, so we are helping. We are facilitated, and I think that's quite right and proper. And I think after this first year, this first 18 months, they'll be able to do a lot more on their own because we've supported them through that initial period. I think the other thing, obviously, to say is that as a community interest company, they are an autonomous and independent body with their own regulators. So there's a whole regime set up to look at community interest companies and make sure that they're operating optimally and in line with the Articles of Association. So there is a degree of regulation inbuilt into this system outside of what we've done as a council. You'll know in Sevenside as well that the arrangements have recently been changed and they're still changing. Councillor Alan Davis from Caldecott has taken over as the new programme board chair. He's doing quite a lot of work to reshape 7 for Sevenside. He's set up new task and finish groups. So all of that work is underway at the moment, and I think we've all agreed, there is a new injection of kind of momentum, and all of that is still taking shape. And I suppose the last thing to state is, obviously, we're just about to conclude the community governance review, which picks up on lots of Councillor Eason's points around whole place governance, making sure we've got clearer alignment, coordination. We haven't got lots and lots of groups. So that work is ongoing. We're due to report that soon. It's just a shame that from May we've had so many community sessions around community governance, what we can do to improve it. And in Sevenside, you know, we had so few attendees. You know, it's really a shame that some of these comments weren't put forward sooner, but I'm sure Councillor Eason has fed them into the process, so I expect them to be reflected in that final document.
Thank you, Kelly. So that will be presented to Cabinet, that piece of work on governance.
Cabinet actually commissioned the piece of work, so I think the recommendation was that piece of work gets reported back into Council, which will be looking for an October date.
Okay, fine, thank you. Colin, would you like to reflect further as well?
Thank you, Leader. Colin Phillips, Whole Place Officer. It is to share with Tony some of the observations that are made, but it's to reinforce the point that's been made about when we are trying to move in a direction of travel to build sustainable, strong and resilient communities, we do need to have a degree of patience, and in every activity we work in partnership to deliver for the betterment of Sevenside, or Caldicot in the case specifically of the town team, we need to understand that sometimes these organisations don't come fully fledged. At the last request for funding for the town team, we considered a request for a visioning project for the town centre, much needed to give people a vision of what Caldicot can become, what's its unique selling point. But that in itself as a project which was approved involves commissioning, and it was suggested, given the lack of expertise in commissioning such a large commission, 2K as part of that project recommendation and approval be given to supporting the town team in commissioning appropriate urban designers. But then, of course, you need to commission the commissioners, so you have to provide support in order to undertake the process with probity, with fairness, rather than simply assuming that people will know who to go to, how to assess tender documents, and so on. So there are occasions and activities that have been approved by Cabinet in terms of funding and activities undertaken by the town team that have been very much organised with minimal officer support, such as the Markets and Events Initiative, that led to the Arts and Crafts Fair, the Spring Fair, that led to the successful, albeit in difficult weather, Family Fun Day on the 14th of August. But there are other commissions where I think Councillor Eason is right. It may seem as if there's a lot of officer involvement, but very often, in most cases, there is a reason for that, and that's with an eye to the long-term, if you like, aim and commitment of the authority to build and empower communities to stand on their own 2 feet, not just to organise a market, but take on bigger questions, the sorts of questions that towns like Caldicot need addressing.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin. That was really helpful. I'm going to open it up to Cabinet colleagues now. Okay. Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Thank you very much, and I most certainly welcome this and then any help that we can give to communities to be able to help themselves and to help other residents within their own community has to be supported. And I also look forward to the governance report that is coming through. I understand that this is a pilot, and with all pilot schemes it's very much ongoing. Things develop, things change, etc. As a person who doesn't live in this particular area and doesn't sit on the programme board, there's a couple of questions. The town team, it would be quite interesting to be able to access minutes or notes of meetings to actually be able to see what they do, because I've got no idea and I've got no way of linking that into the accountability of where we're spending money. So it would be quite interesting. I've got no idea how often they meet, who's on the committee, etc. And that probably will come up in the governance side of things. But and also with the programme, that probably is on the council, and I haven't looked properly, but that probably is there. But it's just linking all those strands together. And the other question I wanted to ask, when I'm looking down here, we're looking at money for electric here. Am I assuming that there is an office involved in this? Because are we quite sure that that money that we're paying for electric is only for the town team and then nothing other activities are going on within that office. And also there are a lot of other voluntary organisations who might be community interest companies who basically do things all off their own bat, and we're not paying for their electric or paying for their public liability insurance. And I just wondered where that balance is. Like I say, a great believer in helping people to help themselves, but there are also an awful lot of groups out there who are helping themselves to fund their own electricity, etc. And I was just wondering also how much time had been looked into at the moment. You know, with the council, we're looking at how many offices we can share, whether there was any help in being able to use perhaps the library or the one-stop shop or the school or whatever for this office to be able to work, so that we could help in that regard. I'm sure there is space. I don't quite understand the office thing, so I would need some help on that. But I just need a little bit more help with the accountability.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the questions. If I can run through them one by one, so to speak. The programme board minutes and decisions should be on the website. I appreciate the website changes from time to time. I will dig out the relevant links and circulate them, the current links for Cabinet members. With regards to the town team, I'm led to believe, I'm pretty certain, they're also on their fairly extensive website, and I will provide a link to that. If there is no link, I will provide copies of the actual minutes in electronic form. With regards to other questions about the spend of money and offices, if I can deal with offices first. If members aren't aware, when the town team set up, being obviously town-centric in its focus and ambition, they took over the premises, which were the steel cabin formerly occupied and run by the Shop Mobility Service. An opportunity, because of the partnership work between the town team and various landowners, property owners and retailers in the town, threw up the opportunity to take up the opportunity free, except for paying services, an office in Holman House, which is above the stretch of properties between the butchers and bargain booths on the Linkway, which they took up, but on the basis that they had to actually pay for what they use. So that's where running costs actually come into play, but it's a much more professional relationship with the town that the town team want to convey, and it's also something that they've advertised is open for others in the town to use if they wish to use those premises as well. I appreciate that we don't always do the same arrangement with other facilities, but we are trying to establish and support the establishment of the town team and their ongoing operation in the town. Obviously with a view to it being self-sustaining, and in that respect the town team have made significant strides in grant applications for specific initiatives. So for example, they have successfully obtained a grant of £1,500 from the Park Grove Trust and £500 from one of the RSLs, I believe Mellin, towards their Incredible Edibles initiative. They've also got a further commitment from ASDA of 5k towards a town map that clearly identifies the town's retail offer on the top of the steps of the ASDA. Where they've been less successful at is in terms of running costs, so that they don't need to continually come to the authority for permission. They have started, they've made some incidental or received some incidental income through, for example, stores at the Eisteddfod, but that's something that needs to be worked further, so that they are able to sustain themselves in terms of their running costs and not just in terms of initiatives. Sorry, the other questions in respect of understanding clearly what the money's been spent on. Was that a question? Sorry, Councillor. Yeah. If I can just clarify what has been agreed to date and what has been spent to date, because sometimes when you talk money, things can get misinterpreted. To date, the authority has committed £41,700 of the £225,000 towards initiatives that promote partnership and activity in the town. Actual payments to date amount to £17,900 towards the town team, with the remaining balance of £23,800 reserved for the Wi-Fi project as agreed at May's Cabinet meeting, and also the visioning project where evidence of progress needs to be evidenced before those funds can be released. So 17,910 has actually been spent to date. Of the 17,910, £7,500 has been approved by Cabinet towards the newsletter that was used to promote the town in the run-up to the ASDA development, and in turn to promote the town team so they could bring in volunteers to understand its presence and its activity and opportunities to get involved. £8,000 was likewise committed to the Fortress Wells and Fireworks event as a platform for the town team to engage with the community in getting volunteers on board, and 1,410 for the markets projects that I outlined earlier. A figure of £1,000 has been allocated to the town team for pump priming, getting it off the ground, and this is a subsequent request for 2,000, just for clarity on spend. I'm sorry if I've missed out any questions, if you can come back to us.
That was really helpful, and I'm going to bring Kelly in a second, and Bob. There was one point which Liz made, which was interesting actually, and recognising the fund there and other local voluntary groups who do not dissimilar things, but more specific in their area of interest. How have they got a right to approach the programme board and bid for any of this monies as well?
The Section 106 agreement in this context of this paper and this discussion is an allocation of 225 for the promotion of town centre partnerships and the promotion and improvement of the town centre. That was based upon the Means report, which suggested the need for a coordinated programme of activity in the town to run alongside the proposed ASDA development at that time. So I suppose in answer to your question, Leader, the implication was assumed that there would be a single body that would access the funding, but technically my understanding is it could be accessed wider, but for the promotion and improvement of the town centre.
Thank you for that. Kelly.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to clarify that we're talking about Section 106 funds here and not our own direct public money. However, because we are the stewards for Section 106 funds, we have treated the funding in the same way as we would public money. So I'm very confident that the process that we've wrapped around this gives us the highest levels of accountability and transparency. But just in response to some of Councillor Hackett-Payne's points, I just think it's really important to remember that the town team isn't ours. It is an independent, autonomous body. And I know that they make all of their minutes and their notes and their meetings available on their website. But anyone at any time can go onto the CIC regulator website. They can access their year-end accounts, their CIC regulatory reports, their memorandums, their M&As. All of those things are on the website at any time for anyone to see. And I think that we support lots of groups, lots of different groups, community organisations with discretionary rental relief, with grants. Not all of those are CIC. So I feel very confident with this, that we have that extra layer of regulation. So as I say, high degrees of confidence that this is open, accountable and as transparent as it possibly can be.
Thank you, Kelly. Bob?
Thank you, Leader. Let's go back 3 or 4 years when we were debating about how this council was to move forward given the huge financial constraints that we had coming on. And we recognised that we could not continue to do all that we were doing. And you remember the programme Your County, Your Way, which identified that we should be actually moving out to our communities and harnessing lots of the enthusiasm and experience that non-elected people have out there and are prepared to put into our communities. And from that, we began on the Whole Place programme in making sure that we could bring these people who, let's face it, not everybody can be elected to the county council or the town council. There aren't enough places. But there are a lot of people who are not elected who have a huge amount to offer. And how we harness the enthusiasm and the work of those people was why we started this programme. We have recognised that there are shortcomings in the governance, and that's why we need this report to come forward. But we must encompass the enthusiasm and the willingness of so many local people to help in their communities. Do we now need all the bodies we've got? Why do we now need area committees if we've got programme boards coming forward? I think that's a question that that we need to seriously ask ourselves. Perhaps the report will cover that. But I think that we do need to recognise that we need a governance structure that will show us how the council and unelected bodies that are doing good in their area are to work in the future. So I'm very much a supporter of town teams and the programme board. I'm also very conscious that in the end, any money of which we are the stewards has to be decided probably by the executive, the cabinet here in the council. And we can't simply abdicate our responsibilities to other organisations. If this money is going to be spent, we have to be happy that it's spent in the proper way. And so I'm very much a supporter of this. However, one thing, I thought that Section 106 monies were for capital projects only, and this looks like revenue payments. Is there something within the rules that allow us to use this money in this way?
Yeah, I believe there is an element of flexibility which allows a small revenue contribution to a larger capital cost, and because this is a building, this is their operating building, I believe it's permissible in this context.
Okay, we do welcome the work they're doing, and I welcome the work that all of the partners within the programme board are doing, elected members from all levels and other groups who have an active part to play in there. And we see in 3.5 this has been referred to their meeting on 30th of June, and this is their recommendation to us, and we have to and we should support their recommendations, and we've got no reason not to, I don't think. Can I now bring in Councillor Bertuni if he wishes?
I think Councillor Hackett-Payne said a lot of it, but I'm pleased to hear that governance is being looked at. And can we have an indication when that report is coming forward? Because there does need to be clearer lines of accountability. It might have been already said, I might have missed it, but if that could be told. Two other points, if I may. The list of achievements you've just talked about, that'd be great if it would be in the report. Just for me as an opposition leader, just to understand the bang for the buck. I'm sure the cabinet would like to see that as well down on paper, and even actually list of failed attempts, things they've bid for but failed for whatever reason. So it's clearer what's going on. I personally would find that helpful. The links you're going to send the cabinet member, could you be sent to opposition leaders as well? If Simon's okay with that. And I know I'm glad you mentioned it about basic office costs, though. I appreciate its patience, and I appreciate the thrust of what we're trying to do, and actually, in many ways, I support that. But do you envisage us supporting the office costs year on, year out of Section 106, which is, as Councillor Greenland just said, it's about capital investment in the town rather than ongoing office costs?
Okay, I think the first point about when the report comes, I think Kelly said October, we're hoping to have something for Cabinet. But Colin, would you like to reflect on that?
In respect of, in respect to the question, Leader, no, it's not envisaged that we will sort of perpetually come with a further 2K request next spring and so on. But how quickly groups can establish themselves in terms of their capabilities depends very much on the circumstances. And just alluding to related points made earlier. Unfortunately, these organisations don't come fully fledged with funding organisers, quantity surveyors, building surveyors to do the tendering process and so on. And therefore we have to have a degree of patience, but our aim is to support the town team to be self-funding in all aspects, looking towards the future. How quickly that will arise would very much depend on the circumstances. But I wouldn't envisage us making a habit of coming back and requesting small amounts such as this amount for running costs on a regular basis in the future. In fact, the point has been made, and it touches on a similar point, that there is a danger if there is small piecemeal requests. Before you know it, the larger figure will be gone, and that's a very valid comment, which is a comment that we've put towards the town team with a view to its AGM on the 23rd, considering a more detailed and specific action plan from which budget costings in a coordinated way can be allocated, so that there will hopefully in a future cabinet member meeting before Christmas be a fully costed schedule that will cover the vast amount of the allocated Section 106 money. So it's not piecemeal cabinet reports, but a much more comprehensive report that, for example, might suggest a project to try and reinvigorate the vacant units in the town, against which a budget heading of 5k is put, alongside the budget heading of 22k for the visioning document, alongside the budget heading of 1.5k for the markets initiative, so that the full picture of primarily capital works, but with a bit of revenue support, can be understood a bit better than coming here for 2k and then next month for another 2k.
Thank you, Colin. Simon? Yeah, thanks, Simon. But I'm not going to open up a great big debate on the concept of whole place, because we're, we're on that journey. And this is some support monies for a town team which is actually delivering stuff. I think it was, Colin went through that, there's been some real positive gains. And actually, if that town team and those people hadn't have been there driving that, we wouldn't have had those things. And the life in Caldecott wouldn't have been enriched as it has been over the last couple of years as a result. Some people will disagree with that, but the reality is, I've got a gut feeling that some of the things wouldn't have happened if we hadn't got people who were trying to drive things forward. And and we need to support them. And I think the comment about groups don't come fully fledged is a really good point. And it takes an organisation like a council many generations to evolve to a position where it looks stable, and and these young fledgling groups, you've got to encourage them. They've got to learn as they go along, and they will make mistakes, but they will add value, and that's what we've got to try and encourage here. And so, I welcome this. I just hope that those people, I think there's about 80 odd membership at the town team. I hope there's enough people helping those core workers to do what needs to be done, because it's a heck of a burden trying to carry stuff if it's just a couple of you doing it, so it really needs all hands to the deck to help this really work. And so I hope that support's there, and I know, Colin, you're putting a lot of support into the team, and we thank you for that. Kelly, you wanted to reflect as well.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Just very quickly, the 225,000 which has been allocated as part of the town centre improvements, yes, it's for some direct investment, but principally it's to lever in additional investment, because when we first had these conversations with Welsh Government going back 4 or 5 years, I think one of the propositions they put on the table was that if we did have a town centre partnership, that group, whether it became a constituted body or company, could then pull in some of the funding streams that the council can't access. So that was the rationale at the time underpinning setting up a town team. And I suppose the second thing to say, going back to some of Councillor Howard's points, is that in the last 12 months, Whole Place has been to Strong Communities Select Committee at least 3 times, possibly 4. Cabinet approved the Whole Place strategy, which sets out all the aims, objectives, the ambition and the measures. And the last time that Deb, Will and myself went back to Strong Communities Select Committee, we did give an update on where we are with all of those measures. So I think we have done a very comprehensive report and update as much as we can at this time.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. It's enough, I think. So the recommendation is for us to agree the release of £2,000 of Section 106 contributions received from ASDA to support the running costs associated with the Caldecott Town team. Are all in favour of that? Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you. Before I just draw the meeting to a close, I just wanted to make also those people who may be watching in aware of the publication today from the data unit of Wales, where local government performance bulletin has been published, and a summary of that of those various indicators is on their website now, which can be found at www.dataunitwales.gov.uk, and our public can actually go and track the performance of relative councils on the My Local Council website, which can be found at www.mylocalcouncil.info, which gives a lot of information around how local authorities are performing. The reason I've raised this is because I did want to bring to the attention that I'm very pleased, leader of this council, of the massive performance increase in Monmouthshire this year. A significant increase in performance, with now 84% of our indicators improving positively, with over 44% of our indicators now in the top quartile, with 23% in the following quartile. Over 2/3 of our indicators are well above the median, putting Monmouthshire at the moment, from a performance indicator position, as one of the best performing councils in Wales. It would be wrong not to mention that, because of the huge work that's gone in by all parts of the council to do that. However, I still recognise that there are areas which are still declining, and we will be focusing very hard on those areas to help them improve as well. And there will be press release and links to the bulletin going out today, which will help everybody identify where we are standing in that field of 22 authorities. And but I'm very pleased with what I've seen today in that information which has been published by the Data Unit. It's nice to recognise that even in this time of short resources, that everybody working together, pulling together, we can still drive up standards in many areas. So thank you for that. I don't know if anybody else wants to reflect on that, but there you can access where your local authority is, and Monmouthshire specifically, on my local council website. Anybody else wish to contribute now before we wind up? Okay, well, with that then, can I thank you very much for your attendance this afternoon, and look forward to seeing you, our next Cabinet member, in a few weeks' time. Thank you. Cabinet meeting next few weeks. Thank you.